Not every EV that hits the Chinese market is full of earth-shattering features or world-defining tech. Some are just simply straight-up vehicles with reasonable specs and prices. As a car reviewer, I love jumping into the latest cars with mind-boggling acceleration and unseen features. But you know what really sells? Reasonably styled, reasonably spec'd, reasonably priced EVs, normally in the form of small SUVs. Welcome to Geely's latest attempt at offering just that. This is the reasonable Geely Galaxy E5. I'm Will, and this is China Driven. Before we begin, there is a very important question. You see, the Galaxy E5 has external speakers. There's nothing new about that. But in the Galaxy E5, you can add your own sound via a USB stick. But there are pre-recorded sounds and phrases that you can play. For example,
请您先行，注意安全.
just like that. But here's the question, it's a very important question. In the preloaded sounds, there is both the sound of a tiger roaring and a lion roaring. But which one is the lion? The first? Or the second? You let me know which one you think it is. Now, I'll state the obvious. The Galaxy E5 has been benchmarked against a couple of competitors, including the BYD UM Plus and the VW ID4. But I see the BYD UM Plus as the main competitor this has set its sights on. Now, the Galaxy E5's pricing is a smidge higher than that car for reasons I'll get into later. But for now, let's break down the pricing of the Galaxy E5. There are 5 trims with 2 battery versions. The shorter range 440km versions are priced between 112.8 to 122.8 thousand RMB. That's about 15.7 thousand to just over $17,000. Whilst the longer 530km versions will cost 128.8 to 148.8 thousand RMB, or just under 18,000 to just over $20,500. Although before October 1st, pre-sale prices are lower. And the similarities between the E5 and its benchmark competitor go deeper. They both use CTB or cell-to-body battery pack structures, and both even use a similar cell design. Now, the only difference powertrain-wise between the two versions are the battery. The 440km version has a 49.5 kilowatt-hour LFP AEGIS battery pack, and the 530km just has a larger 60.22 kilowatt-hour pack. And both of them will basically charge in the same amount of time, 30 to 80% in 20 minutes, which is faster than the BYD UM Plus, which does it in 30 minutes. Now, BYD is famous for its Blade batteries, these long, thin LFP batteries. And the Galaxy E5 uses a similar kind of battery. They call them a short blade style battery. They're still long and thin, but they're about half the length of the BYD Blade battery. And that means that they can charge faster than those. These AEGIS short blade batteries also claim a high energy density for LFP of 192 watt-hours per kilo compared to BYD's current blade batteries, which have an energy density of about 150 watt-hours per kilo. These are more in line with BYD's second generation blade batteries that will be coming out in the second half of this year, and they're touted to have 190 plus watt-hours per kilo. But so far, these are way more energy dense. Now, this is the key takeaway for me. Now, I believe this is very closely benchmarked against the BYD UM Plus, or Atto 3 as it might be called abroad. And the Galaxy E5 is everything that the UM Plus is, but just a bit better. Okay, so I have some kind of side-by-side to show you just how close the BYD and the Galaxy E5 actually are. So the UM Plus is a 420 and 510 kilometer version, whereas the E5 has a 440 and 530 kilometer version. So just a little bit more. The power is a similar story. The UM Plus has 150 kilowatts and 310 Newton meters, and the E5 has 160 and 320 Newton meters. It's simply a game of one-upmanship at this point. The BYD does 0 to 100 in 7.3 seconds, and the E5 ekes it out with 6.9 seconds. And it goes on and on and on. The BYD UM Plus has a wheelbase of 2.72 meters and the E5 has a wheelbase of 2.75 meters. So really, the Galaxy E5 might be a tiny bit more expensive than the BYD UM Plus, but it's simply better in every department. This global compact SUV will be badge engineered across the world with the likes of Proton's Malaysia market EMAS 7. The optional LED grille provides a more interesting front end styling. In this spec, the front has some large C-shaped DRLs wrapped around the air inlets for the brakes, and at the back, the rear end design is equally low key and restrained. Just an LED light bar with integrated tail lights. This is a compact SUV with a pretty run-of-the-mill compact SUV shape. Just name me any mainstream compact SUV and I'll show you this silhouette. It's functional, it's good looking, if not inspiring. In kind of true EV fashion, the overall design is like one of a stone that's been left in a river for a century and smoothed out. There are some creases up on the bonnet and down the side, but generally it's a smooth affair. And in true EV fashion, we have retractable door handles, and like any good compact SUV, we have some kind of plastic cladding over the wheel arches for those kind of car park incidences. And last but not least, what would a compact SUV be in this day and age without a roof-mounted spoiler? Because
compact SUVs.
It's not a bad looking car, but I'd be dumbfounded if this won any design awards. This is buttered toast, plain white rice. This is sensible styling for people with sensible tastes, not those sick degenerates that covet the Hi-Fi Z styling. No one is likely to have a strong reaction to the styling either way, and in the mainstream market, that can be a good thing. But this interior, oh boy, Geely have done it again. I've said this to many people that Geely punches above its price point when it comes to interiors. That doesn't mean that it's draped in Napa leather or trimmed in 24 karat gold, nor does it have lamb's wool carpets. It means that if you put this up against its competitors side by side, this will be better put together with better materials and more thoughtful design. And the Galaxy E5, I'm glad to say, is no different. You see, inside a Geely interior and inside the Galaxy E5, even the lesser materials have some kind of patterning or molding to make them feel or just look better. Take this central piece of trim here. Now, it's plastic, but if you feel it, it's kind of molded and it's designed to kind of look like wood. Now, it doesn't really look like wood, it's quite obviously plastic, but it looks a hell of a lot better than it would do if you just had a plain piece of gloss trim black plastic or something like that. There's also metal touch points over here, the door handles, for example, and even things where you are unsure if they're metal or not. Take, for example, this big swivelly knob here with knurled metal. Well, I say knurled metal, they tell me that it's not. But I mean, you'd have a tough time believing it was plastic. The seats are imitation leather as well, but they're soft and comfortable and nicely designed. Now, these seats on nearly all trims come with heat and ventilation, except for the base 440 and the base 530 kilometer versions. They don't get it. And this top model even has bar massage function, and it's good. Like, it really digs into your back to give you a decent massage. Now, optional on all models except the absolute base 440 model are these headrest speakers. Supposedly the only car in this segment that has them, and that will take your 12 speaker sound system up to 16 speakers because there's 2 speakers in each headrest in the front. And they can do, you know, lots of different things. Sure, they can add more of a surround sound experience for the driver, but they'll also be able to pipe in things like phone calls directly for the driver, sat-nav instructions, and my personal antisocial favourite is for the drivers to be able to listen to music while everybody else is talking. Screen-wise, you've got a 10.8-inch instrument panel, a 13.8-inch heads-up display, which is always nice, especially on a vehicle at this price point. And then in the middle, you have a 15.4-inch 2K touchscreen. And all of these are being powered by Geely's Dragon Eagle 1 chip. They say it's comparable to a Snapdragon 8155. Now, the infotainment screen is running Flyme Auto OS, which is made by Meizu, which is a company that Geely either acquired or they part own. I can't exactly remember. But Meizu started out as a phone maker. In fact, here is a new Meizu phone. And they have been leaning more into doing this kind of Flyme car solution. So, for example, in here, the sound system is Flyme Sound. But Flyme Auto, the OS, we've seen it before in Lincoln Co's, for example, the new Lincoln Co 08. And it's always been very snappy and responsive, and this is no different. Another nice feature about it is if you own a Meizu phone, then you can connect it to the screen and you can basically view and use all the apps that are on your phone on this center screen. So now I have a quick menu to your favorite apps that you use on your phone, and then a list of all the apps that you have on your phone to use here on the center screen. So we could go into Douyin, and then it's just going to display here on the left hand side. Okay, so a couple of other little things. Now, this knob that I was talking about earlier, if you just twist it, it controls the volume, which I love. And if you long press it, then you can set it to be a quick function button. So I've now set it on AC temperature. And now when you go back, if you just give it a short press and then turn it, it now will change the AC temperature for me. And if I leave it for a little while and it goes away, then I twist it again and now it's back to volume, which I really like. You've got a couple of cup holders, of course, and then you've got a single 50-watt wireless charger, although there are two spaces for two phones, but only one of them is actually a charger. You also got a central storage thing, and you've got a really big space underneath the central console to store, I don't know, I guess a handbag or a very large pair of boots. There's also some nice ambient lighting in here. You got it up on the dash, but kind of like hidden and tucked away, and a nice glow from the grab handles. I do enjoy some tasteful kind of ambient lighting in cars. Okay, so you join me relax in the back of the Geely Galaxy E5. I mean, if I want to get into an even more comfortable position, these rear seats do recline a little bit. It is manual though, and if you just pull it, you get a little bit more to lay back. And look at the amount of room I have in here. Now, the wheelbase is 2.75 meters, which in a world where you've got so many 3-meter plus wheelbase EVs coming out, it doesn't sound that impressive, but really the interior space in here is surprising, especially in the back. I'm behind myself. I'm not the largest guy in the world, 1.7 meters or about 5'7", but I mean, a lot of knee room, leg room. I can easily get my feet under the seat in front, loads of headroom. This is really a surprisingly roomy little car. Other things back here, material quality, the same as the front. You've got a lot of kind of soft touch here, some kind of interesting molding on the gloss black plastic, metal trim door handles, nice big windows. It's very airy and light in the back of here. Other features back here, well, you've got a USB-C socket as well as a USB-A socket. And, well, it's not a fridge, but there is a storage here down the center. And when the AC is fully blowing, it is a little bit cool in there, but it's not a fridge. There's also a little drawer here, which is great if you've got kids, I think, where you can just kind of store their knickknacks so you don't have to ride around with forgotten toys in the back of the car. Other than that, you've got an armrest with a couple of cup holders, you know, some pouches on the back. But really, the most impressive thing about this is just the space back here. For a compact SUV, the seats are quite comfortable as well. In terms of storage space for the Geely Galaxy E5, in the boot you get 491 litres of space, but it is kind of split because there's a large amount of storage space under the boot floor. But if you drop those seats down, then you get a huge 1,877 litres of space. There's quite a lot of space in a compact SUV. So this has just over 200 horsepower, and it's more than enough to kind of nip around and be in and out of traffic with ease. It's more than anybody really needs on a day-to-day basis. And this thing can actually cruise pretty nicely. It sits at 120 kilometers without a problem on the highway. The only thing I would say is there is no double pane glass in here. So once you hit about 100 kilometers an hour, wind noise does start to pick up, although you can still have a normal conversation, and if you were to turn on a bit of music, you barely hear it anyway. Okay, when you put your foot down, it picks up speed. Remember, this is 0 to 100 in like 6.9 seconds. It's not setting the world alight, but no one really cares about that in this segment. What you do have to understand, though, is the way that it picks up speed. It's not linear like a lot of EVs. The torque curve is more like a traditional petrol engine. It builds that torque up, and that helps a lot for ride comfort of passengers, because some people, they do suffer from motion sickness, especially riding EVs, because of that instantaneous torque. This tries to round and off and soften that torque build up, and it's quite comfortable to ride in, and also it's quite easy to drive it very smoothly. Now, obviously, in a car like this, driving vehicle dynamics, handling is not really something that anybody cares about. This is a front-wheel drive car, and it drives like a front-wheel drive car. It handles like a front-wheel drive car. But it has been quite pleasant to just pootle around in this all day. Earlier, I was talking about how Geely, compared to the competition, always does really, really well with its interiors. And another thing that I've noticed that's generally true across Geely products is their suspension and just overall ride and comfort in their cars. And even at this lower price point, they always seem to deliver a ride that is better than a lot of their competitors. And this little Geely Galaxy E5 is no different. It is very comfortable. It's quiet in here, except, once you get up to motorway speeds. But for the daily kind of hustle in the city, this would be a perfect little car. It's riding on Geely's new GEA architecture, which is 400 volts, but it is kind of an offshoot of the SEA architecture that underpins things like the Zeekr EVs. The big difference is, though, that the GEA architecture is made for both pure electric and hybrid models and EREVs as well. Now, having a small little SUV like this would be nothing if it wasn't efficient. Now, Geely claimed for the 440 kilometer version has an efficiency of just 11.9 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, with the larger 530 kilometer model having a slightly lower efficiency at 12.1 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. But that's mightily impressive. Very efficient. Now, ADAS in this price segment, you can't expect too much. All models get cruise control, with the top 2 models getting adaptive cruise control as standard, and you can option it on some of the other trims as well. And that's basically the Galaxy E5's level 2 ADAS system. It's just going to be adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist. There is no highway NOA, and nor is it coming, because that adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist is all being done by a single camera and a couple of radar units. But like I said, in this segment, it's comparable, and when I used it, it did its job. So the sensible Geely Galaxy E5, you're getting some features that were typically reserved for more expensive EVs not that long ago. And I think that not only speaks to how good this little global car is, but also to Geely as a company, their ability to develop technologies and then trickle down into cheaper models. This is the Geely Galaxy E5. It's sensible, it's not outlandish, but you're getting a lot of specs and features for a very reasonable price. I think this will be a good seller in China and potentially quite popular in markets outside of China. I'm Will, and this is China Driven.